Now, whether you're new to machine embroidery or whether you've been embroidering for many years, we've all said these same words. What am I doing wrong? So today we're going to look at 2 posts where people ask that question on social media. And these are specifically to do with fill stitches and the quality of the result when stitching. Now, if you like these types of videos, be sure that you hit that subscribe and ring that bell so that you're notified every time we release a new video. Now, as you can see within this first post, there is a ton of quality issues, and it says, what am I doing wrong? I'm getting these gaps and it's not visible within the preview. Now, they are mentioning a version of software which I know is very inexpensive, and it is, not necessarily what I would consider personally a quality brand, because any software is really as good as the stitch processor that's driving it, how it actually calculates those stitches. And I'm pretty sure in this situation, you're going to get what you pay for with regards to the quality and the output of the design. And that's generally what they're asking is, they're undecided to get a paid program, if they want a subscription-based program, and they're not sure what to do. Well, I would definitely suggest in getting a digitizing program that is made by a reputable manufacturer. You can really tell with the way it paths the designs, especially within fills. A complex fill is a shape, and if it has, holes in it, like the E has a hole in it, everything has to be kind of broken up into pieces based on the stitch direction and the inclination, and then there needs to be underlay underneath to kind of hold it all together. Now, to make matters worse, this is actually being embroidered on terry cloth, which terry cloth does need a certain amount of density, a certain amount of pull compensation, and a certain amount of underlay that's going to actually secure the foundation first before it lays down the stitches. So I'm guessing that this design is just not showing up very well because of the software that was being used. I don't think there's really too much you could do with regards to it other than maybe trying to digitize it manually the way we used to in the old days, and breaking up every single segment and manually joining them together. I can also see that the smaller lettering says of the month club. That is all very, small objects. They really should be satin stitches, and it looks like the software just did everything in a fill. So this is really one of those, telltale signs that you get what you pay for. You should get good, training, education. Any software program is only as good as the education that comes with it. I don't think you're really doing much wrong. You just need to have the right tools and the right training to embroider properly. Now, this is a very similar post with regards to a fill stitch. You can see that it's being run on a PK knit, and it has a fill pattern that is actually being sewn. And she's saying, why are there always gaps in my thread? I have a Brother PE 900, and every time I embroider, it leaves gaps. I've changed needles, replaced bobbins, rethreaded, adjust upper tensions, but not the bobbin yet. And she's really kind of perplexed as to why this is happening. Again, I don't think it's the machine. Your machine is just fine. It is what you feed into your machine that gives you the results with stitching. Brother and other reputable brands make great equipment, and if you put in a quality design, you're going to get quality results. So if you're using a standard 40 weight thread, if you're using the needles that come with the machine, if your tensions are within reason, halfway decent, then if you're seeing gaps appear on your fabric, then it's more than likely the design that you're using and the settings within the design. So I would ask, did you pay for this design and get it from somebody? If so, you might want to try another vendor, or did you create it yourself? Because if this was created by the person who posted this, then they really should get some foundational, education and training with regards to how to create designs. Just looking at this on PK Knit, I can see that the density is probably not quite 0.6 millimeters, because you shouldn't see that amount of fabric showing through. If you have it set at 0.4 millimeters, then that would actually give you no space between each pass of thread, and you won't see the fabric coming through. But I should also point out that I don't see any underlay within this design. When you're dealing with PK knits, you definitely need pull compensation and you need underlay so that you have a foundation for those top stitches to sit on. This is the design that's causing the issue. It's, not the machine. It actually looks like it's sewing nice and flat. So what I'm going to do is we're going to take a look at a complex fill. I'm going to give you a couple of examples and how you can modify things and look at how your fills are actually being generated to see if you're going to have good results. So for this example, I quickly created one star with a hole inside. So there's a star within a star, and I created a hole so that it's going to do some complex pathing within the actual object. And that's really where the stitch engine comes into play. And then I took that first star and I duplicated it a couple times, and I assigned different recipes. And I assigned one recipe, which was PK knit, and then I did another recipe, which was actually terry cloth. And then I duplicated those and I repeated those, but I changed some of the other variables within the settings. And I'm going to show you really quickly a couple of, suggestions when you're creating objects in your software. Hopefully your software has recipes, and hopefully they're reliable recipes. And if you have a stitch engine that performs well, it will take into account a lot of the overlap that's necessary when you have complex pathing within a fill stitch. So when I look at this first one here, this star, and I'm going to do what's called a quick redraw, and you're going to see that it starts right over there at the side, ties in, then it goes over, and then it's going to come back up, and it's going to go back over and down, and it's going to meet right over here and do that little section. Now, that really isn't pathed what I would consider properly. If I were pathing that design manually, I usually try to have a flow of stitches so that it starts from the top and kind of flows to the bottom as much as possible. I like to push my fabric in one direction with my fill stitches. If I have too many stitches that are going in different directions and then butting up against each other, you can have gaps and, overlapping within areas, especially if there's not a significant or the appropriate amount of underlay to give you a solid foundation before you do your fills. So the first thing that I would suggest within this is I would go in and I would change the pathing. So I would actually probably start at the top here and I would end at the bottom. And then once I do that, and if I were to redraw that again, you're going to see that now this time it's going to start at the top, go here, do this little piece, go down, up, go down, and then go all the way down to the bottom. And it just makes a logical process of how it's actually accomplishing that one fill. Even though it's a pretty simple shape, there is a lot of mathematics with changing directions and having areas that need to, be finished before it keeps going. I ended up changing all of those stitch directions on there. Now, the first one, as I said, has absolutely no recipes within it. And the stitch count of this first one with no recipes, if I just grab this, is actually 1,066 stitches. The next one, because it does have a PK knit recipe, it actually goes to 2,119. And then when I go to my terry cloth, it actually goes to 2,219. And you might be asking, well, why are is the subtle difference or the change between these two? And what it really comes down to is in this one for PK, I really need a good foundation and then probably not as much density. So this is at a 0.5 millimeters because it's going to hold it down. There's going to be more stretch on PK knit than other fabrics. So I don't want to hammer a ton of density because it's going to cause that fabric to potentially pucker. So I've taken out some density. The next one, which is for terry cloth, that actually is the same type of underlay, and it has the same stitch length, which is set at 2.5 millimeters, but the density is actually 0.4. So I have slightly more density within that actual design. And when you look at it on screen in 3D, you really can't tell that there's that much of a difference between any of them. Now the ones at the bottom though, and I'll just do this as an example. If I look at this one, which has a 2.5 millimeter stitch length, and I take that stitch length and make it 4 millimeters, the stitch count goes down and pretty significantly. This was 1,666 stitches. This one dropped to 1,184 stitches. Same thing, going from a shorter stitch length to a longer stitch length, I've actually saved a substantial amount. This is 2,100 stitches, and this one is 1,640. This one here is 22 39, and this one is 1734. So by increasing the stitch length of the actual fill, it's going to be faster on the machine, provide more coverage onto the area. The only downside is a lot of times the longer the stitch, the more your bobbin and top thread is going to pull, and you can potentially have more distortion. But I really like to play with stitch lengths. And also you have to remember that within every single fill, you have different patterns that you can choose, whether it's a pattern that actually defines a shape or looks more random, or has a smooth pattern to it. So if I look at this fill right here in 3D, and let's just change this to a lighter color so you can kind of see what it looks like, I'm going to change that pattern, and you're going to see that I now have a completely different look to that actual design based on the type of pattern that I choose. So and that's with that longer stitch length. I can take that same pattern right here, and I'm going to change that to the exact same pattern with a shorter stitch length, and it's going to end up looking slightly different than the first. So there's so many different variables that you can play with regards to your actual stitch lengths, your densities, your underlay, and your pull compensation. So to go full circle, I think that the issues were the designs weren't digitized specifically for the fabric that was being, embroidered on, and they probably weren't done that well. Now, if you've watched my videos before, I always say the proof is in the stitching. So of course I stitched this one out, and you can see some slight differences with regards to stitch length, but all of them have good coverage on a black fabric. And usually when I try to do coverage tests, I usually try to, embroider white thread on black fabric, or black thread on white fabric, but I really want as much contrast as possible when I'm doing my testing. And that is a good exercise for all of you who want to learn densities, learn stitch lengths, and use your software. Do some testing, do sew outs. Always make sure you see what you're sewing, and that way you're going to repetitively get better results. So I appreciate your watching. If you want to learn how to create machine-friendly designs that stitch out well and look beautiful, make sure you click the link in the description below.